Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another movie review. This time around, before December, Gladiator 2. So, Gladiator 1 came out in 1999, starring the amazing Russell Crowe, directed by the amazing Ridley Scott, and a slew of amazing artists, actors, and actresses that, now have excelled to do amazing things, Oscars galore, including Joaquin Phoenix. This time around, now, we've got a new cast and some old cast, but the main star of this is Paul Mescal playing the role of unknown uh, gladiator that is supposed to find retribution for, unfortunately, another general that's done something that's wronged him in Pedro Pascal's character, Marcus. Denzel Washington plays the role of Maximus, who is basically the overseer of all the different gladiators. And then you've got Joseph Quinn and Fred Hetchinger that are the emperors that are over resigning at this point. This movie takes place 16 years after the events of the first movie, and I have here my co-host in this review, Mike. What's up, Mike?
Are you not entertained? I was, but
yeah,
for the most part, I was entertained.
You know what? This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put up a face, and this is my entertainment. I am entertained. And he is looking at me. You better make sure you entertain, son. That's what he said. But no, let's go ahead and kind of get into it. You know, me and Mike, we had the opportunity of going and checking out a first preview of this at CinemaCon this year, and it was a very interesting presentation. I was excited for what it could be, but at the very least, I knew that this was going to be a spectacle. I anticipated this being a very entertaining ride, blood and guts, rated R. I kind of knew that's what I was getting. I just didn't know if I would connect with any of the characters. I'd heard different rumblings from different people that they loved Denzel Washington in this film. And at the same exact time, some people kind of was wanting a little bit of something more. I think we are in between different threads with that, but we're going to unpack it for you guys and go beat for beat. This is not going to be a long review, but we will be very clear and concise, and this is a non-spoiler review. First thing I want to go and talk about the practical effects, the soundtrack, as well as the action. So I think the soundtrack was really freaking good. The soundtrack, to me, was one of the better soundtracks that Ridley Scott has adapted with any of the films he's had in the past 5 to 10 years, in my opinion. And I honestly think that as much as I think that they overexhausted a lot of CG in this, I did go back and research that a lot. Even the whole entire Colosseum, they actually built that thing out. It's actually a practical set, which is insane. The arena is actually real. And so, you know, when you're seeing a lot of the fight choreography and things going on, whether it's like animals there, whether it's like different body parts and misrememberings going on, they do a really good job of keeping you entertained, and as well as they keeping the beat down when, especially if you're watching in Dolby. I think that the sound design is actually really well done as well. But I think that Napoleon had a really good sound design and cinematography as well. But what did you think about score, cinematography, set design, and honestly, the action itself?
Yeah, I think, again, that's what Gladiator is known for. Again, I grew up on, the Spartacus, franchise on Stars. So, and that's like a bonding experience between me and my dad, watching that type of action, that gore, and everything like that. But with this, obviously influence of with the Gladiator, Gladiator set the tone and pace of the original film, in terms of that, creating that atmosphere, creating that, that setting, during that time. And with this film, it doesn't miss beats on that as well. Like the cinematography was magnificent. The sound design, really, again, of action explosions, too, as well as a arena style, creating that sense of, again, the atmosphere of the arena and everything like that. You being there. Again, we saw this film in IMAX, so with all that being enhanced on top of that with IMAX, it just made the experience more enjoyable. But yeah, I thought the visual effects and the score, some familiar themes if you have seen the first film. But again, it's still, I think, was not. I know when the first trailer came out, everyone was upset about the Kanye, hip hop music. None of that stuff in this movie. None of that stuff in this movie. So you straight.
Nah,
Yeah,
it was just to build up hype, guys. Don't worry. It's an actual baseline score.
yeah.
But I think the next thing that is kind of pluses and negatives is going into the cast. The cast is honestly a very talented cast. And
Yes.
I I really knew very little about certain actors, and then some actors I was like, man, they're in this. I cannot wait. So Paul Mescal, I hadn't seen the movie that he would in. That it was kind of his breakout role up until recently. So I know that he's a great character actor. I know what Pedro Pascal can do, but I was kind of like, man, he's in everything. They brought Connie Nelson back for this role. Joseph Quinn is in this as one of the emperors. And so the highlight, of course, is Denzel Washington. So there's great talent here, but did they all leave a lasting impact? And I think that's where there's a real question there. Unfortunately, some actors definitely did their thing, and other actors were kind of unfortunately forgotten in the pathways. Unfortunately, an actor like Fred Hechinger. Fred Hechinger plays opposite to Joseph Quinn. Joseph Quinn is one of the emperors that are in this that have very weird background that they kind of loosely kind of give you an explanation for.
The twin brothers.
Um,
Yeah.
and he unfortunately does not leave a lasting impression. I don't think it's for him as an actor that he's bad or anything like that. It's just the way that his character is designed, it's not functional. Whereas somebody like Joseph Quinn, who's a great actor, every scene that he's in is great. And I feel like they didn't need both of the actors there. I think that they could have made something more streamlined. But I don't want to divulge too much. But Joseph Quinn, when he's there, is doing a very good job. Now, Connie Nelson being back, pure nostalgia. I love that. Like she's doing as good a job as she did before. But I think that the highlights are Denzel Washington and Pedro Pascal. Every scene they're in, whether it's an action scene, whether it's a dubious scene, like I think that they are stealing the show, even from the main actor, which is Paul Mescal. Paul Mescal, from a physicality standpoint, every action scene that he's in, you can tell he's doing it. Like he's nailing it. The unfortunate thing for me is I didn't get that invoking emotional connection and trigger with him that I did get with the original with Russell Crowe as Maximus. And it's weird because there's so much more foundation for me to feel something, but I just did not feel that from Paul. I actually felt a lot more from Denzel and Pedro's characters in Mercutius and Marcus, unfortunately, in this one. But what did you think about the actors, good or bad, in this one?
Yeah, no, everything you said about that, I felt what pertaining to Joseph Quinn and the other actor that played, both played twin brothers who are emperors. Honestly, they could have easily just combined those two characters in a way, and honestly, just go with Joseph Quinn with and him playing another personality, what the other twin brother was exemplifying, because it's just like after again going through the plot of this, I thought it was a waste opportunity to fully let Joseph Quinn shine in that film. And no disrespect to the other actor that played his twin brother, because he played the role that he was given, and again, going to the rest of the cast too. Again, you bring back nostalgia back from the first film, that was necessary compared to the main character, right? It made sense to bring her back, but also with new addition characters to Pedro Pascal and Denzel Washington. They were very, there wasn't the one note, character you were questioning, even from the marketing, like, hey, are these heroes? Are they villains? And then off rip, again, and just by acting, like we see Pedro Pascal in a lot of different media, but there's a reason for that because he's good.
Yep.
It's like there's not, I understand a lot of people see him like he Mr. Fantastic, he's Joel, he's in Game of Thrones, he's in a lot of other properties, right? But like he's good as an actor and a good character actor too. In terms of putting him in any different genres that he can deliver. And instantly, we're thinking like, okay, he's doing these heinous acts, but then you see him from the performances from his face, like, oh wait, he doesn't actually enjoy doing this, or hey, this is actually not what someone in this position will feel like, the way he's feeling and stuff like that, right? So, and that's by the performance of just him, with his charisma, how he's carrying his presence on screen. Denzel Washington, on the hand, he did a very meticulous way of mannerisms, in his performance, the physical acting, again, just he was enjoying himself in this role.
Yep.
And you can see, and it was good as an audience member to see, because easily with these big franchises, they can easily just take a big name actor and throw them in a forgettable role and just have their name as a title in the trailer, in the credits, to say, hey, this Academy Award winning actor is in this movie, you should go watch it. Instead of, hey, here's this well caliber actor in this role, playing this character that's very fleshed out and multi-layered in different ways, and it's a very good performance to watch on screen. That's how you utilize a actor with his caliber, because we've seen so many times with just other actors and other properties just be wasted, what, for cameos or whatever. No, he embodied this role, and anyway, it was interesting for me to watch this film again and just see, how the journey from his character from the beginning of the film to the end. But yeah, I felt, again, the certain choices in this film, which we'll get into some of the negatives, is that I think pacing a lot, or things are probably were on the cutting room floor that kind of left some of these characters not being fully fleshed out in terms of how we felt after this movie was over. And I think and I don't think is really a testament to any lackluster performance that was given. It's more of what they were given on screen, the editing, what was left on the cutting room floor, and what the character was actually written to be.
Yeah, no, I think that was well spoken, because through the journey of this, again, this isn't a character that wants retribution. They want revenge, and you're kind of trying to figure out what that revenge entails. What is it that this person's after? What do they need retribution for? And a lot of times when you see the character up there, like, he's either very much so angry or very much so smiling, and you don't really get an intimate connection with him. One of the reasons why, and I think that the first movie felt grounded, as much as it's a good action film, it felt really intimate in a lot of different ways, because those small, subtle moments of you understanding who Maximus is, what the surrounding theme is, and also what the thing that he's trying to overcome. And it's like with this, you have a lot of exposition and things to kind of use. But unfortunately, the way that it works, unlike the first one, it is boom, 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 boom. Like, the pacing is very much so off. And it hurts, unfortunately, in my opinion, the story. The story itself, it kind of becomes like one note, this scene, one note, that scene. Great performance in this scene. Let's stop it because we got to go and beat the clock. And there are moments where, like, there's a really good scene with Denzel Washington and Connie, and it just all of a sudden it just stops and it transitions to a whole nother scene, and you kind of feel like, I feel like there's more there, or they maybe cut a scene. I did hear that there's a scene when Denzel Washington does something very interesting that did get actually deleted out and cut out. Denzel Washington said he spoke about, like, this is probably one of the biggest films he's ever been in, and he loved and thrived a lot of different things about it. And I really do feel like you said it, Mike, that there are certain characters that suffer from the way that the pacing functions, because they become, unfortunately, one-note characters. They don't become like three-dimensional characters that you're supposed to gravitate to or connect with. And so it's kind of like, I actually was watching the film and I was like, man, this is rushing too quickly. I don't know if I care. I love the action. I love how this is going. I want to care about how this character is going to overcome this obstacle or not, or this death. Man, this happened. I don't know if I have time to even think about it. You brought up Spartacus Blood and Sand. And again, this is a TV show versus a film. But every single episode of Spartacus Blood and Sand, when you watch it, when stuff goes on, you feel every single, like, if you think about the first episode of Spartacus Blood and Sand and what happens and everything he has to go through in that first episode, it's just like gut-wrenching, while at the same time you're like, conquer this, do this, don't compromise. Like, those different principles get lost because of the entertainment of how fast things are trying to go and pace through. And I really do think that does a disservice to how good this really could have been. If this was a 3.5 hour movie, I would have been fine with it, to be quite honest with you. I've seen longer movies in the past 96 hours, and I really do think that if this was a little bit longer and touched up better to allow the characters to breathe, as opposed to just trying to be an action movie, I think that this could have been something very intimate and really intentional. And unfortunately, that's not what this is. But Mike, what did you think about the story, the pacing, and your perspective on the process, how this was done?
Yeah, I enjoyed like and then feeling I enjoyed myself because I think was I entertained? Yes, I was entertained. But I think as I would keep looking at you, I was like watching the film, it's like, one thing happened and another thing happened. And I'm just like, man, like and it's more like I know we're in this more barbaric time where like anything can happen, where someone can get shot in a bow and arrow and whatever, explosion or death happens and stuff. But you're sitting here, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't have time to actually just kind of just let the story play out, and I mean like to breathe. It's almost like it kind of suffocates a few times because it's like, oh, here's the next scene, here's the next stage transition, like you know what I mean, like so it'd be like that. Like, oh, now this character turned, this character gets off, and now this character gets promoted, and then this round gets fighted. It's like I understand it's playing beat by beat of a regular film and stuff, right? That you are common with, and then even moments that literally are predictable, right? Like I literally was like, oh, yep, this character's going.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
what'd you say? Oh, okay, character's gone, and it's predictable. And I don't think there was a moment I was shocked other than how things were executed. Like a death or anything. That was like, oh, that was surprising, but not like, oh, like I saw that coming. I saw that coming.
Yeah.
This movie's predictable. Not,
Yeah.
and then, but I don't think the me being uh predicting the things that are happening in this film made it kind of taking the enjoyment away from it, because I still like watching these action scenes and everything, but it's very much just similar to the first film and stuff. So it's like, hey, if you enjoy the first film in terms of the action and really didn't care much about the plot, just here just for the ride, yeah, then this is an entertaining film. But for me, I also like to have not meaningless action without story, because I think action with story backing behind it makes it even greater. The emotional element can actually take a scene to new heights and stuff like that if you just have good writing behind a action scene, right? And unfortunately some of these scenes you do have that, but then most of them it's just more okay, here we go. So and that is unfortunate, but I think that now I also think that's tied to Ridley Scott, because again, it's not uncommon for him to do this if you know Ridley Scott films. So that's where I'm like, is it surprising? No, it was predictable.
Yeah, I think that the word that we're trying to use is substance.
Yeah.
There's not this really good feeling of substance with a lot of this, unfortunately. And I think if it was, like, it's weird. There's different movies that's come out recently, right, from him, like Napoleon. Like it really felt really boring, and it was like maybe that would have better served the opposite of more of an action base. Then there's like a movie like The Last Duel with an amazing cast, very well acted, very well like done as far as substance, but nobody remembers it. And it's like this. I really feel like there wasn't any relationships in this film that I actually really truly cared about. There were character motivations, there were actions, there were like, admirable things happening and horrific things at times happening, but I didn't really care about any of the relationships in this. And that's unfortunately the worst thing that I can say my impression about the film. I wanted to care about certain relationships, and they kind of feel like sand. They feel like loose sand. I hate to say that and use that as a metaphor, but it feels like I'm picking up something and it's just sand slipping through my fingers. I feel like this film could have actually been great. I think that there's something there that just didn't happen. I'm not sure if it was because of budgeting or time, or that was just a choice from Ridley. But I do think that there are certain things that he does as far as directing that are really well done. I do think it was a touch more of CG than it didn't need. Some stuff I would have just really preferred to have more practical, and I think that's one of the reasons why there's a nuance to the original that makes it feel so much more lively. And I think it goes back to like movies like Troy. Like we all remember, Brad Pitt versus Eric Bana's fight scene because of how practical it actually was. And I
Right.
think the way that these fights happen, it was more on spectacle of like, how can we up the ante? How can we make this more worse? Versus like, let's stick in like home back a little bit. Let's focus on this fight. Because if I compare the fights in this to just 2 fights in Doom Part 2, dude, Doom Part 2's fights were better choreographed, better shot than the fights in Gladiator. And that's crazy because Gladiator is supposed to be the opposite. like it's no business. Doom Part 2's fight scenes, which is very limited, I think it's maybe 3 fight scenes, were way more emotional and electrifying and well shot than some of the ones, because there was a lot of times it was skipping through some of the action scenes. Again, I don't want to dump on the film because I do think it's a very entertaining ride. It just unfortunately feels like it's sand through my hands. If I had to give it a final thought, I think that the acting from Denzel Washington, Pedro Pascal, Joseph Quinn was amazing. I think that Paul Mescal does a great job with what he has. And I think his physicality, it definitely commands a lot. He's definitely going to go places. Unfortunately, as far as the pacing, it just was not paced the way that it should have been. And I think if it would have been stretched out a little bit longer and taken a little bit more time to breathe, it would have given the substance that we actually wanted from this one. So I think I'd rest this at a C+. It may barely get to a B-. I'm really thinking a C+ right now. I think it's definitely something I would say you should go and check out, if not something from entertainment value. And then also there's certain ties to the first one as well that I think are really cool, but it's not as good as I hoped it had been. But what are your final thoughts, Mike and Raiden? Uh-oh. I think you're muted, man.
Sorry. I said I'll be surprised to say that, yeah, there's another film that's coming out this week at the same time as this that I think is better than this film. Which when at CinemaCon, I couldn't even believe I would even be saying that. But hey, here we are. Yeah, I'm not gonna say nothing, but I'm not gonna say nothing. But hey, yeah, I'll just say that, was I disappointed in terms of all with this film? Like, I feel like I have wasted time. No, I just feel like this film could have been way more better if it just had more better pacing in terms of fleshing out these characters. And also it could be long. This is a 2-hour and 34-minute film. And it can get dragged on. For some people might say they can shave off 20 minutes. And for me, I'm like, well, you can give me 20 minutes extra, on this.
Yeah.
Just to, finish off, wrapping up this film nicely and everything. But aside from that, I had some great performances with Denzel Washington, Pedro Pascal, as well as everybody else, Joseph Quinn, everyone else in this cast. And I just want to see more of them. But yeah, I would say I give this a C+ or B-. I did enjoy myself. I'll probably watch this movie again. Yeah, I just think that, all right, if you're just enjoying this film for what it is and just for entertainment value, go ahead. Are you trying to find this film as predecessor from the first film and succeeding it? No. And that's okay. That is what it is. But yeah, just don't go in having huge expectations like this is gonna knock things out of par, being greater than the first film. No. But
yeah. But yeah, you guys, that is our final thoughts on Gladiator 2. Mike, where can everybody find your content?
You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok at JediMike7. You also find me here. I also got some other videos coming up, but I just been busy, uploading reviews and other stuff like that. But yeah, I'll be. You make sure you hit notification bell on my channel here. I'll be doing a review for Gladiator and all this stuff coming up this week and stuff, along with interviews. Be out, look out for that, and you'll find me here as well. So yeah.
Yes, sir. We're gone, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you go and subscribe to his content. Definitely stay tuned. We got a lot of craziness coming up. Definitely some interesting interviews. Definitely go and pay attention to our TikToks. If you want to see more anime content, video game content, you can find that all on our TikTok. And we'll be back. Peace, people.